here with Bridger Pennington. Bridger, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, Sam, fun to be on.
I'm excited. And what's really fun is I was listening to your podcast and you rebranded last year, right?
Yes. Well, Apple makes, once you hit 300 episodes, you have to start a new show.
I didn't know that.
You don't know that? Yeah. So anybody that does episodes, once you hit 300, they literally make you do another.
Oh.
And a lot of people do like season 2 where they just do the same thing, but part 2.
Yeah.
But I decided to just change the name to make it more generic so I could talk about whatever I want.
I literally just rebranded for the same exact reason. I wanted to talk about really what makes people tick successfully in the home, financially, in business. And after doing, almost 100 podcasts about multifamily, I realized that was way more fun to talk about. And I really like something that you said, and it's actually something I've worked on with my business coach for a while. And his question, I think it was 2 years ago, was, what would $1 billion fund manager do? And how would he live like? What would he be like? Because Sam, that's what you need to be in order to get there. And that was a really profound question for me. I was like, wow, like doing what I'm currently doing, the person I currently am is not good enough to get to that $1 billion. That was our goal back, we said in 2019. And you have a very similar, exact same topic. If I want to get to that next level, I have to become that type of person. So talk to me a little bit about that, because that's what really hit home for me. And that's what this entire podcast is about. It's becoming that better person. And whether your goal is to be an amazing dad, which that's a huge, important thing for me, or CEO, which is something you're working on currently as well.
Yeah, there's a great framework. I wish I would have thought of it myself, but I'll give credit to Dr. Ben Hardy. He spoke at our last event. He taught this framework of most people think in terms of time of your past determines the present and your present determines the future. So a lot of people think of time. And so my past self determines my present self, and my present self will determine who I end up one day. He goes, successful people think not exactly opposite, but in a much different way. How they think is your future self learns from the past to your future, and your future self pulls your present self to the future.
Wow. And
so if you think about he had 3 little bubbles and draw lines of your future self learns from your past self, projects a new future, and your new future self pulls your present self to that future. This is the concept of visualization or affirmations or whatever it is, where you're speaking into existence who you are. You've heard all these cliche things, but he goes, he kind of built the science around it of, if you can build a strong case for your future self, what a lot of people do is if they really build that, what do you call it, mindset or fortitude of who their future self is, it pulls your present self, starts to match the frame of what's acceptable or not acceptable for that future self. So he wrote a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. Very cliche sounding title, but actually very cool concept. The idea, he draws this map of, the best to visualize, but imagine all these you call them pencil sticks or grass lines that are poking up, right? And he goes, for example, if I told you to 2X your business right now, you and me could probably come up with 100 ways to 2X your business.
Yeah.
We could run social media ads. You could hire more sales staff. You could hire an assistant, all these different things to 2X your business over the next 3, 5, 7 years. But he goes, if I asked you to 10X your business, to literally 10X your revenue, the frame of reference to 10X your revenue narrows the choices of what's possible. It goes down from 100 possible solutions to usually 2 or 3 solutions.
Okay.
And so he goes, what happens is when you reframe yourself to a 10X solution, it narrows your options and actually helps you be more efficient with your decision-making process. Hence, your future self of 10X future self, it pulls your present self to that future self. He gave an example of, he had a family member that was a competitive athlete growing up. And he goes, if your frame of reference is, I want to make a college sports team. Well, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's certain paths you can do to make a college sports team. And I think this person was a tennis player. And so there's certain paths that you go to become a college tennis player. But he talked to this young man when he was 15. He said, well, do you want to be a college player or a pro player? He's like, I want to be pro.
Right.
And they really sat down for him and he said, oh, well, there's only a handful of options to really become a pro player. And it changed what coach he had, what nutrition, what plan, they moved across the country to get this better coach because that's the route to become a pro player. Does that make sense?
Wow.
This idea of there's a lot of different routes to get to a college tennis route. There's only a few routes to really become a professional tennis player. and it changes your frame of reference. So on that concept of, he kind of made a science of big goals or your future self. And what I liked about it, because you hear all these cliche podcasts that talk about like just 10x or go bigger.
Yeah.
But it started to make sense to me. Like, oh, that actually does make sense of a frame of reference, my future self pulling my present self into that.
Again, going back to the topic of becoming someone better, a pro athlete is going to make very different decisions on what they consume, what activities, coaches they have, than a collegiate athlete. And if we take it into real estate, fund managing, whatever it is, the type of people you talk to, the type of investors you talk to, the type of deals you do are going to accelerate you to maybe having $100 million portfolio or $1 billion portfolio. And I really like that frame of reference of pulling your future self, pulling your current self to become that person. Now, I was supposed to start with something else, and I'm going to steal this from our mutual friend Travis Chappell, because I really like what I heard on your podcast. And admittedly, I've consumed a little bit of your content for years, and getting ready for this interview, I was like, damn, like there's so much content to consume and people to listen to. And admittedly, just the last few weeks getting ready for this podcast, I was like, wow, Bridger has a lot more depth and really good content. So I appreciate that, and would encourage our listeners to check out your YouTube channel, your free content. Absolutely. But I just did an interview with the son of the owner of Edge Homes, a good friend of mine, Boom Addicts, runs a great real estate team, 7-figure producing real estate agent. And people talk a lot, and I don't know, I haven't heard this about you. So, but for him anyways, people call him, he's using daddy's money. He's only there because his dad put him there. And that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I did want to talk about, though, is the parallels between you two are you both had fantastic dads as role models, mentors, business coaches who trained you and also introduced you to some really great people, business partners. So the question I wanted to pose to you, again, stealing this from Travis Chappell, is it who you know in business and life, or is it what you know? Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, a lot to unpack there. I had a dad who ran a deca-billion-dollar family of real estate funds, did extremely well. I have a long story I won't share today, but I didn't know my dad was rich. We live in a very normal house. My dad drove a car with a dent in the door, and then I come to find out in college he's extremely wealthy, runs a fund 10 times bigger than Grant Cardone. I mean, done extremely well. And anyways, come to find out with my dad, and anyways, I pitched my dad for money for my fund. He says no, and still to this day, my dad's never invested in any fund I've ever done or any deal I've done like that. But he's been a great mentor, a great coach, and has, and I think there's a lot we could unpack there. I was also on another show we were talking about the same subject. Apparently, I didn't know this, but Gen 2 entrepreneurs, second generation, have a lower success rate. It's actually much less likely for them to start businesses.
Interesting.
Than an average person. That's an average entrepreneur person. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that you can unpack as well, but we won't. But back to the original question you asked, the how versus who. Working on how do I do this thing, or who do I know that I can hire to this thing?
Yeah.
Traditionally, the common answer for this question is always how. Find the people, right? Find the right people. If you don't know how to do sales, find the person who can do sales. If you don't know how to code, find the person who can code. I want to go one step deeper, because that's a very cliche thing to talk about. Yeah. I think a lot of people get caught up in that. Is they get caught up way too much on, I just got to get in the right room and network with people and be in the room. I know a lot of good people that are in the right rooms. And coming from, let's just call it any wealthy background, I have a friend, his dad, did incredible things, and he got invited to really great rooms.
Yeah.
And he did nothing with it. There's a lot of people in nice rooms. And the second piece of that is, can you convert in those rooms? Meaning, me and you could walk into a room and you could go work the room and everyone loves Sam, and Bridger just sits in the corner and does nothing, right? I got in the room. I knew, they even know my name. Hey, Bridger, how's it going? But they would never do business with me or you, for that example.
Sure.
And you're crushing it. And everyone wants to do deals with you. So I think there's a lot of building up enough credibility and authority on the how, so that the who's want to come work with you. One of the biggest questions I get is like, Bridger, how do I find great partners? Because I preach that in funds. Most funds, you need really good partners. No one does this alone. And the example I always get is like, what's the easiest way to date a 10, like a 9 or a 10, if you're in the dating world? Well, yes, I know there's people that are 5s that date a 10, and there's people that bat out of their leagues for sure. But the easiest way to date a 9 or a 10 is to also become a 9 or a 10. 9 and 10s, guess who they want to date? Other 9s and 10s.
Yeah.
9 and 10 business partners want to partner with other 9 and 10 business partners.
Yep.
And so it comes back to self-development on the how. Learning how to become someone that people want to partner with. And that comes back to actual business skills that you can develop and learn. Like my business partner, Dan Young, incredible dude, you should have him on the show.
Yeah.
On Intel's board of advisors for 17 years.
Wow.
AMD gaming advisory member, done 600 million in revenue through his companies, multiple Inc. 500 winner.
Yeah.
50-ish years old, partners with me when I'm 27 years old. Why?
Yeah.
Now, maybe I got lucky and batted out of my league, but I would hope to think that I had developed enough skills where he saw me as and we're 50-50 partners on our fund, where he saw me as, wow, this is a guy that's developed business skills that match my business skills and we want to go into a venture together.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something you attract as well.
I love that. And there's no wrong answer there. There's a lot of opinions, but is it who you know or what you know? Well, a lot of people get on like Travis's podcast for years. That was his main question. And I would agree if you're introduced to the right people, but you don't have the skill sets or the drive, or you're not attractive to them, you're not a 10, you're not prepared, you can't take advantage of those opportunities. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if you have all the skill sets and you have all the drive and you just can't get in those right rooms, for whatever reason, then, those skill sets are useless as well. And so that's what I think, like my buddy Boo that did very well is he was hired on at Edge Homes and he could have made $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year. I think their average agent made like $200,000 a year for years. And within a couple of years, he was making 7 figures. Like you don't do that by not bringing the right skill set and the drive and the motivation and the work ethic. And at the same time, you could have been introduced to your dad's business partner and wasted his time, right? You could have not learned anything and what a waste that would have been. So, I don't think there's a right answer. What I do know is that without introductions to the right people, it's really hard. I felt like for years I had the right skill set. And when I finally started getting in the right rooms, joining masterminds and found those partners, that's when my business exploded. Mm-hmm. And so
I think you're always doing both simultaneously.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I've had a lot of benefits from who my dad is. And not just my dad, I've got great uncles or family members or cousins or just friends that I've met from high school. Just I was born on the same street as them. Like I've just been, I think all of us have unique background and relationships that we can bring to the table. And I think you're working on both the entire time.
Absolutely. Because you probably have lots of friends or siblings with those same connections who are not running funds, who maybe don't want to do that. Anyway, so.
And I'll add something on this. A mentor told me this years ago, and I loved this. This mentor is hugely successful. You'd know his name if I told you. And he said, Bridger, you got to be someone when people want to introduce you to their friends because you add value to their lives.
Exactly.
And if you can, he goes, they'll give you 1 or 2 chances. Mm-hmm. And if you capitalize on those 1 or 2 chances, they will keep because it adds status to their life. So if I met you today, hey, Sam, and then I've got a friend I introduce, hey, Sam, you got to meet my friend over here.
Yeah.
And you kind of flop and flub it, I'm probably never going to introduce you again. But if you guys meet up and that guy's like, wow, Sam was incredible, dude. That was one of the best you got to, it now added status to my life.
Yeah.
Because I introduced those two and I'm going to introduce more people to Sam. And so I think that's helped me a lot to try to be, anyways, back to the whole concept of building skills and going that way.
No, I think that's a really good point. You have people that like to do networking. And then there's people that actually genuinely will add value to other people's lives. So if you're going just to get something for yourself to these networking groups, these mastermind groups, generally, I don't think you're going to have great results. But if you can say, hey, let me connect you with someone else, you're there adding value to other people's lives. Just like you said, they're going to have that great impression and they'll want to return the favor.
And sorry, to wrap this up, the last thing I'd say is execution stands out more than anything else.
Yeah.
There are millions of people that go and network or talk or hang out or think of a business idea. Very few execute. If you want to stand out and be a level 10 business partner or entrepreneur, execute on, even if it's a small thing or a big thing, be a person with a reputation of executing on things. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how many people you don't have to network. They come to you.
No, I love that. And when I started my podcast, it was kind of great timing. We named it Recession Proof Real Estate Investing. It launched the month of COVID shutdown, the start of the COVID shutdown. So great timing there.
Yeah, that is good
unintentional.
timing. Yeah.
And really, we just studied what happened in 2008, 9, 10. And then we were studying live, real time, what was happening in COVID. And Travis Chappell and I talked, and he's like, what's the goal of your podcast? I was like, I want to teach my investors. I want to add value to my investors, but I want to figure out how to add value to my guests as well, because I'm probably benefiting the most, no matter how much I do for these listeners, for my guests. And so one big goal of mine has been to promote anything I can promote, get the best social media content for you. If you're taking the time to come sit down with me, share your knowledge for free, I'm sure you've got plenty to do. You got a wife, kid, just one kid, right? Mm-hmm. Plenty to do, plus your companies. I want to add as much value as I can. And so whatever we can promote for you, I want to. I wouldn't have you on if I didn't think you were worth promoting. And so that's something that served me a ton as well, taking action as far as promoting the people that I get on the podcast. And I've never really had to try hard since then to get people on the podcast because of that. So Travis Chappell, great advice, really great brainstorming with me to do that. And it's been great. But I wanted to talk about your dad. I grew up with a dad that was MIA, wasn't around. Pretty good stepdad, taught me a lot. But I used to work out with the owner of Edge Homes and his three sons. Mm-hmm. And every morning at like 5:30 a.m. for 6 years. And just the business knowledge they gained and they learned. And I would listen. I was much older, 10 years older than all them. And I was so jealous. I was like, man, these guys are so lucky to have these lessons from their dad from the time they were little. And then I had started having kids of my own. And it's been a huge goal of mine in life to not only just be a fun, good dad, not lose my temper, teach them things, take them on fun fishing trips, but how do I be the Steve Maddox or what's your dad's name? John Pennington, who teaches really valuable lessons to their kids and doesn't become that crutch. So I really want to hear that crutch story again from your own words, because, again, Steve Maddox did the same thing for his boys. He gave them jobs, but then let them struggle. And he let them go out and get the sales and make their own way. And they're all making fantastic money and doing really great. And then I actually have a mentor who has given everything to his kids. And they're in their 50s and they're still floundering and struggling, and none of them have done anything. So I've seen both, and it's been my goal since I had my daughter in 2013. I'm not going to give her everything, but I want to teach her everything and give her the opportunities to go out and earn it for herself, and then my other kids as well. Mm-hmm. So tell me about your story. I honestly loved hearing it. Tell me about the crutch story and your dad refusing to give you money.
Yeah, there's a ton there, and I'll tell the quick story and then we can talk more about it. But yeah, I started 6 businesses my first years of college. So, and that came from, I grew up in I think a very good, I would say like the perfect place, meaning we lived just below all the really wealthy people. I lived in a pretty normal house, and all my friends lived in the really nice neighborhoods, wealthy, huge homes, and we lived in nothing bad, but just a normal home. And my dad drove a 1999 Ford Expedition with a dent in the door, and that was just, it was fine. Nothing wrong with that, but it was just, and so I remember growing up with this just drive of I want to live in one of those big houses. Yeah. And I knew the kids there. Yeah. And actually my dad told me later, he said he intentionally did that.
I love this.
So he said he grew up in North Las Vegas, and he said, my friend, he goes, most kids believe they can do what their mom or dad did. Mm-hmm. In general, if your dad was a firefighter, you believe you could be a firefighter. Or if your dad's a dentist, you believe you could be a dentist, or your mom, or whatever. And so he goes, the problem was I grew up in North Las Vegas, and most my friends didn't go to college. Yeah. Most of my friends wanted to go work, which nothing wrong with it, but just wanted to go work at the city or the county district, school district, or whatever it was. And he said, I'm going to make sure my sons, he had 3 sons, that they grow up with kids whose parents are an anesthesiologist. Because that if their friend says, oh, I'm going to be an anesthesiologist, well, my kid's going to go, well, yeah, me too. If you can do it, I can do it. By proximity, their kids will have more confidence in what career paths they choose. And so that totally worked. He said, he's like, I paid for a nicer house, a bigger mortgage. I didn't afford at the time to live in a nicer area. I bought the cheapest house in the nicest area.
I love that.
So that my kids would be around kids that believed they could start their own business and be millionaires or multimillionaires and just do incredible things. And it totally worked. And so it put this drive and ambition in me. And then additionally, I saw that I don't know, I have this whole complex of, we could talk about psychology around that. But anyways, I go on a church mission. I went to Taiwan. I speak Mandarin Chinese for 2 years. It was fantastic. So I come home from my mission. I'm like, I'm getting started. I'm in school to make money. Like I'm here, like I got to figure out the money game. And so I came home, I started 6 businesses my first years of college. I started a Chinese tutoring business. I wholesale 2 homes. I started building websites for people while in college. And I was doing internships at the same time, like everything around money. I knew I wanted to go into finance in some way, shape, or form. And finally, my dad grabs me and says, Bridger, you're kind of like a chicken with your head cut off. You're doing all these crazy things. Go meet with my business partner. This guy could maybe be a mentor to you or help you out. So I drive to this guy's house, and he lives in this gorgeous, huge home. Beautiful white home. It like surrounds this cul-de-sac. I go knock on the door. I'm like worried a butler is going to come and, be gone, peasant, like kick me out. So anyways, thankfully my dad's business partner opens the door. Bridger, come on in. I walk in this guy's house. It's gorgeous. Pool in the backyard, basketball court in the basement. Just amazing. Starstruck. I sit down on his couch. We start to chat about life and business. And I finally ask him, how did you get all of this? Like, how'd you do this? And he goes, in my 30s, I was a lot like you, Bridger. I actually started a number of businesses. I actually did decently well. But then he goes, then I figured out the secrets of the ultra wealthy. It was the ultra wealthy families of the world. They want their kids to get in the world of funds, the world of private equity, hedge funds, venture capital, or come back home and run the family offices. This is what the wealthiest people on earth do. And he goes, I met a guy that ran a private equity firm. He's like, I didn't even know what private equity meant. And he goes, but this guy was young. He was successful. I said, I don't care what it is. I'm going to figure out what that thing is, and I'm going to go do it. And he goes, that's what we did. We went and launched a number of funds. At the time, they were managing roughly $8 billion of real estate, AUM. Today, they're over, 40 something, 50 billion. And I was like, and he goes, if I was you, I'd get in this game of funds. And we end up the conversation. I said, hey, can you be my mentor? I'll come bring you coffee, whatever you need. Like I got you. Yeah. And he goes, Bridger, go talk to your dad. Your dad knows way more about this than I do. I said, no, my he's poor. He's not poor, but we're not like you. You're obviously way more successful. I'd love to learn from you. And he goes, Bridger, sorry to break it to you, but me and your dad make about the same amount of money. And no idea. I knew my dad did okay, but not to this guy's level. Yeah. And I really was shocked. I was like, really? And my chin dropped to the floor, and I left the dude's house. I drove straight to my dad. I was like, Dad, what the heck? Like, what's going on? Like, why haven't I been able to, order dessert at a dinner because it's too expensive for the last decade, Yeah, like what's going on? Like, right. So anyways, my dad, he says, I like to save and invest my money. My partner likes to spend his money, but yeah, we're doing pretty well. So long story short, my dad starts to teach me about funds, how funds are built. We get the whiteboard out every Sunday night. He'd map out what funds are. Funny thing about life is once you start to learn about something, you start to recognize that thing in your life. Yeah. You start to see that thing everywhere. So I started to visualize and see how funds work everywhere and how they could optimize or help things. And so I was in college. I saw an opportunity. I was at an internship. So I'm in college. I was trying to start these companies, and I was doing an internship. At the internship, I saw an opportunity where I could start a fund for this company, and that we could finance deals that were coming through. They needed a short-term debt financing that was coming through for these clients. Anyways, I thought we could do a fund here. I went and pitched the owners of the company. They loved the idea. We kind of worked out through all these deals. We kind of partnered together. And then I went and talked to my dad. I said, Dad, does this look awesome? He started to help me map out. We started to frame out what this fund was. And then I got it all set up. I go to launch my fund, and I'm like, crap. Now I got to raise money, right? Yeah. This is the problem. Like, who's going to invest in me? I'm 22 years old in college. Who's going to invest in me? And I thought, my dad. Ta-da, easy. I'll go pitch my dad, investor number one. And so I went and pitched my dad, and that's where I kind of told the beginning. But I walked in his home office, and he said, Bridger, I have the money to invest, but if I invest in your fund, this would ruin the opportunity of you raising money on your own. This would be a crutch that you'll never be able to recover from. Your first investor is your hardest investor to find. And if I do this for you, it won't go well for you. And he said, no. And he kind of kicked me out. I walked out with my tail between my legs a little bit. And I said, I'm going to go do this. So I went and I hit the street. I talked to everybody I knew. I raised a whopping $49,500 for this first little fund syndication. And it was enough to get started. It's probably the smallest fund ever to get launched, but we got launched. We launched it and actually did extremely well. We got a 64% return to our investors. Wow. Did extremely well on a small amount of money, but good return. We then closed that first little syndication. We launched our second fund, and that fund we raised and deployed millions of dollars out of that fund. It did extremely well. I ran that for about 3.5 years in college. And it was very cool. We got, I think the next year we got a 62% cash on cash, 47 the next year, and then 36% cash on cash return to investors.
Wow.
And then
huge.
we had
for our listeners that don't know, stock market's like 6 to 8%.
Yeah.
So just frame of reference, that's huge.
It did extremely well. We then had a competitor come and buy us out, gave us an offer. We sold the company and we paid back all investors. It was awesome. And then now I've started a new blockchain focused fund with Dan Young. That fund manages roughly $20 million, all equity, no debt. And we just launched a new fund called Fund Launch Partners that has about 10 million AUM under it right now. We're raising money for that one right now. So I roughly manage about 30 million right now, and we're growing like crazy. We're hoping to be about $100 million in the next 12 months.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, congrats to you for taking the opportunity and running with it. Like, we started the podcast, is it who you know, what you know? Well, you had the who, and you ran with it, and you're doing fantastic. So congrats on that.
Yeah, it's been fun. And then we started educating people on funds. So my brother runs he's an attorney, and then my dad obviously did his funds. And so we started to bring people together to make content, and then we made a course. Then it turned into a bigger course, and then it's turned into a whole system, almost an incubator to launch funds. So we've launched now 210 funds out of our community called Fund Launch. We have, get this, dude, this is crazy. I don't know if anybody's ever built a course before. If you build a course, you hope, 20 people take it, maybe 100, that would be cool. Or if 1,000 people took your course, like that would be crazy. We've had over 100,000 people take one of our courses, which is wild on investment funds. It's been very cool. And we have about that company Fund Launch has been extremely successful and done really well. And it's been cool. So I run funds, and then we do big events. We have courses that I just share what's working, what's not working. We bring in mentors from around the world that all teach and share about funds to help more people learn this game. Cause it's quite a, locked up game on Wall Street. I mean, our mission at Fund Launch is to democratize Wall Street, to make high finance available to everybody. So if you're like, Bridger, you're so lucky you had a dad that taught you about this. I am lucky I had a dad that taught me about this. So that's why I built all this crap, like this course, all the videos. It's like everything my dad taught me and 20, 30 other people. We just put it into videos and content, whatever you need. You take it, the exact same stuff that I had, and go use it for yourself.
I love that. And we're going to jump back to that. It's one of the questions I had is to talk about what you offer. I've consumed a little of your content. Admittedly, I've been waiting. Had some personal life stuff going on. We've raised, I think, $50 million in the last 5 years for syndications, which, by the way, that wasn't available until just a few years ago either. You could not raise money as a syndicator. There's the 506C, all that the SEC changed. So a lot has been changing and democratizing and really making this available to the masses is awesome. And now, anyways, there's lots of things that people can do, and I'm really excited. My partner and I started our company in 2019 with the end goal to manage a fund. And so we've been waiting to kind of take care of some stuff that we've got our syndicated deals we're working on. And we are going to start a fund in the next, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, we're not quite sure. So we've been excited to actually take your course together and go to your events together. My partner is Lyndon, he's in New Mexico. But again, before we jump into that, I want to jump back to the story of your dad not investing with you, which props to him for being willing to, I'm assuming you took it pretty well, but there's probably, he's probably a little bit nervous to tell you no, based on what your reaction could have been. But really
I don't think so.
Okay.
My dad, that's just kind of how he is.
Okay, I've seen some
He's
kids
just like, go get it. Like,
okay, that's awesome.
Like, I think that, I don't think he was nervous or whatever. He's like, no, you just go figure it out. Like,
awesome.
And that's it. That's the relationship I think he had. And I took it that way too. It's like, all right, yeah, you know what? You're right. Like,
okay,
let's do this.
Well, that's awesome. I've had a business partner who his kids literally throw fits if he doesn't send them $1 million to go buy their next deal, their next flip, and he gets guilt tripped. And so I've kind of seen that end. And it's tough. It's tough as a parent when he's worth like $100 million and they just want him to write checks constantly. So anyways.
Well, and I think that's the result. And if I could unpack my childhood, I know a bunch of people.
I was just thinking about what I think you're going to say.
Well, yeah, I've seen, it's this whole concept. And this is where kids then start to resent their parents and parents resent their kids. And when parents give money to their kids, they think they're doing them a great service. In reality, almost always that I've seen, kids end up resenting, and it actually creates a divide over time because they should have funded more. They should have done this. And it creates a mass amount of entitlement, and it's super sad. It's so sad because I see these parents that are well-intended. I want to give my kid a leg up, and in reality, it is destroying a relationship with them over time. And additionally, it's funny, I get to go pitch a lot of family offices now. So I get to go pitch wealthy, very wealthy families. And usually because for our fund, so I'm usually pitching though the second or third generation. Okay. And I'll tell you, I mean, you might have seen this as well. Most of the time, there is a deep sadness behind the eyes of the second or third generation person I'm talking to. Almost every time. Dad or mom made all the money. Son or daughter is now running it. And I'm pitching son or daughter. And I walk in the office and I'm like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And you can tell they are fragile, and they don't have confidence. Because guess why? They shouldn't have confidence. Because they get into, this is what happens. They get invited to these very nice dinners and other great things. And entrepreneurs show up with tons of confidence. Because oh, how's it going? Our company's crushing it. How are you doing? And they feel so out of place. Even though they're in the right room, they didn't earn their spot in the room, and they know it, and the other people know it as well. Yep. And what happens is they keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until they kill themselves. I mean, I had a brother that committed suicide as well. We get to unpack that for a little bit. But they go through all sorts of inter-conflict, and then out of nowhere, they're like, you know what, we're going to do this charity thing. We're going to put $20 million here and build this home for people because that's how I'm going to stake my place in the world of something good that I did. And I have limited experience, but I've been around this type of group enough to just know there's a high level of depression, a high level of sadness, a high level of I didn't make it. Yeah, like you mentioned, 50 years old and still trying to live up to dad or live up to mom. Yeah. And it's like, spread your wings, do something on your own. And the root of the problem was parents who enabled and entitled their kids at an early age. It started probably at 8 years old, then 10, then 12, then 18, then 24, then anyways, I go on and on about this, but it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Really, really good point. My ex-in-laws struggled with this, and this is where I started realizing how big of an issue it was. Mm-hmm. So my ex-grandma-in-law, her husband died, left her $100 million. He was a multifamily syndicator, actually. Mm-hmm. And her kids just received millions every year, and they were very unhappy people. And they'd go into these business ventures, and they'd always lose their money. Then grandma would bail them out. Have you heard the story of what happens when you help a butterfly out of a cocoon? Mm-hmm. Okay, so
it's all weak and right. It can't.
So yeah, if you help it, the wings actually don't develop, and it cannot fly. So you'll help it struggles, and sometimes like people or whatever entomologists will watch these butterflies, and they struggle for a day to get out of this cocoon. Finally, it actually emerges as this beautiful butterfly and flies away. But they were helping them, and they'd get this butterfly out in 5 minutes. And instead of struggling for 12 hours, it finally emerges, and the wings don't open all the way, and they just kind of fall apart, and the butterfly dies. And I've watched that happen. Again, a few friends that grew up very wealthy, who were given everything, who never really had to struggle. They've always had.
Isn't this so interesting? Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I believe in God. If you're God looking down at people, isn't this such an interesting concept? Of a lot of people listening to this want to make money. And if you believe in a God that loves you and is doing the best for you, the worst thing ever might be giving you $100 million because you're not ready for it. I think about this a lot. Lottery winners are the best example of this. And so I think about this a lot of how do I develop myself into someone who is ready to manage a personal net worth of $100 million and not let it ruin my life? Because if and you can believe in God, universe, or just life, whatever you believe in, but if you think from a God perspective, it would actually be a terrible thing to give George down here $100 million because he would be unhappy, depressed. His kids would hate him. They'd all be on drugs. Let's not do that for George. Even though George is working 20 hours a day trying to make money, he is not ready for a $100 million blessing from heaven. And so I thought about a lot of, am I ready to manage $1 billion personal net worth? And maybe I'm not. And so what things do I need to do in my personal mentality to manage that much money on a personal net worth and personal balance sheet? I think it's just an interesting conversation from a God perspective.
Well, if you're spiritual, religious, again, whatever you believe in, it's the same concept. Do I want to pray to not have the challenges, or do I want to pray to become strong enough to overcome them? Yeah. I've had a lot of personal challenges. My ex walked out on me and the kids at 2020. Actually, I've had 2 business partners steal from us. We're suing one of them right now. Actually, they don't know about it yet. We caught them just taking hundreds of thousands of dollars behind our backs. Wow. And that's really hard, and really, really hard to be stolen from, really hard And, I try to catch myself thinking, man, I wish this wasn't happening. And instead hiring another business coach, going to therapy, reading good books, talking with successful, motivated people, and not asking for the challenge to just be dismissed or to be over, but really, how do I build myself? How do I look forward into the future and say, hey, what kind of person just gets through this and comes out on top? And again, the butterfly, it needs to struggle. And so back to these family offices, and I've really been toying with the idea of talking to more family offices. Would love to get into that as well. And I just had a few interactions. The kids, you're right, they haven't achieved anything. And I think one of the quotes I love the most is Zig Ziglar. What is the definition of success? It's not achieving something great. It's the pursuit of a worthwhile goal or objective. And that's when people are the happiest. Not when they actually get there, not when they win the championship. It's when you're on that road of hustling every single day, doing what you know you need to do to get there. That's actually true happiness, because you're every day doing what you should be doing. To become an amazing dad, every day I'm getting up and I'm doing these things with my kids that are really important to me. I have lots of goals as far as being a dad and teaching sports and finance and playing games with them. And that's actually when I'm happiest. I don't think in 20 years I'm just going to sit around being happy like, oh, I was this great dad. It's doing it. It's actually doing it. Being a fund manager right now, it's really hard right now. We have one property that had a partner steal from it. And that's a huge challenge. Our investors are pissed. We're pissed. We're hiring lawyers. And at the same time, we're learning how to avoid that in the future. And it's like, well, do I want to not go through this? Or do I want to go through it, make sure we come out on top and learn how to not ever have that happen again?
Yeah.
Again, you got to have date 10s in partners. Yeah. Right?
I thought about this a lot as of recent, about the concept of work and what is work. And I always thought this was cliche for years. Like when people say, oh, I just love working. I'm like, no, you don't. Like if you could choose, you would just be on a yacht somewhere. But you can't choose, and that's why you're working. So you're poor. And I thought it was just cliche and dumb, and I actually couldn't understand people like a Warren Buffett. Why does Warren Buffett work at 90 something years old? And I was like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like if it was me, I would just be hanging out, skiing, having fun.
Or why do people that retire get dementia?
Yes, and go crazy. And so then I thought about this a lot as of recent, and my conclusion so far is that humans are meant to work. It is part of the human condition to work. And to define work, meaning progressing in the pursuit of something great. Humans are meant to do that. Now, it could be your golf game. That could be your form of work or pursuit of something. And people find a lot of joy and satisfaction, or it's an art piece, and I hope to, not my whole life, not just work for money, but I think there actually is a lot of satisfaction in working, and you're getting reward with dollars, and that's the scoreboard. And building great products for customers, I think there's something so satisfying, and it's actually the breath of life. If you're a Christian, the Bible talks like Adam. The first thing God tells Adam is go work, go till the field. I think part of the human condition is to work. And so then I've had to now come and rewrite my brain on to fall in love with the work. My happiest days are the days that I hit the pillow at 11 p.m. and I'm exhausted. That's a much better day. And yeah, it's fun to go to the beach for a couple days here and there, but the reality is the happiest moments of my life are when I'm in the Rocky fight scene or the Rocky, training scene, like the training, the getting ready, and so I love the mentality of that's where I'm at right now. And we're in the process, and this is the process is the fun piece, and to fall in love with the work. And I've been saying that over and over in my brain, fall in love with the work, fall in love with the work. And it's a fun mentality to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Rohn talks about your brains are goal-oriented mechanisms. And that's just how they function. If you have a goal, your brain is healthier and happy that it wants to go achieve goals. And then if you achieve that goal, you got to have another goal. You got to have a bigger goal, 10x. You got to go bigger.
And it sounds dumb and cliche, and I thought that for a long time. But the more I think about it, it's the happiest moments in life are when we're in the thick of it and we're going at it.
Well, and that's why the golden handcuffs of a 9-to-5 job is so dangerous. Comfort and just having a job where you clock in, get your paycheck, clock out, go home, watch TV, go to bed. If you're not being challenged, if you don't have a side hustle or something motivating you, that's, a lot of people talk about, that's death. Like, you're already just dying. One of my mentors, Mike Ferry's like, you might as well just get in the coffin. If you're just going to do a 9 to 5, come home, do the same thing every day, not have any challenges, goals, or big dreams, scary, audacious dreams, you're basically already dying. So, and you're either dying or you're growing. There's no staying the same. You're going up or down. So let's go back to what you guys offer, what you've done. Because I love the story about your dad. I love the story about you having to spread your wings, fly, do it on your own, raise money, build your own funds. But let's talk about Fund Launch Live. And this is actually a really good, amazing time that we're doing this interview. Because again, Lyndon and I would love to start a fund in the next year or two. Trying to tidy up a few deals, suing a partner right now. So we're going to get through that first. A little bit messy. Yeah, and the market's in turmoil too. The market's, I mean, it's what a great opportunity. There's people losing deals to the bank, and then there's amazing deals coming on the market as well. So we probably want to do it sooner than later. But what would be the top 3 things that you add value to as far as someone coming? Let's say I've never even syndicated, never done anything. I just have an idea. I want to launch a fund. What do you guys offer that's probably the most effective and important for that type of person?
3 things. So number 1, all the education. You don't know what you don't know, especially about funds. And so where are the rules? Where are the lines? Where's the strategy within this game? We share all and teach all of that, usually through video or course content. Number 2 is, so that's the education side, is we call it incubation side. So if you're like, hey, Bridger, I want to do a fund. Launching a fund there's a lot that goes into it. It is not just setting up a little Amazon store or like wholesaling a house. Like, it's a big deal launching, especially when you take other investor money. It's a big deal. You got to do it in the right way. So we have a full lawyer team. We have 8 different law firms that come in, build the fund with you. We have a pitch deck design team. We have 15 different coaches that work with you through the process of incubating and building a product that investors want. Do it in the right way. That's a clear go-to-market strategy you can do extremely well. So we've launched 210 funds through Black Card, or that's kind of our top group in the last 2 years. So about 2 funds per week. We conveyor belt that. That's the second phase. So first is education, second is incubate, and then third is allocate. So we now have a GP stakes fund. We actually have now written 4 checks into firms inside of our community. We actually help. We partner with them. We write them a check anywhere from $250,000 to $2 million. And then we help them with the long-term growth. So that's kind of the three tiers of our product offering: is education on the beginning. We'll then incubate your fund, and now we actually allocate to your fund as well.
Got it. So really great information there. A lot of value, because a lot of people, I mean, there's so many intricacies with the legal side, SEC regulation. How do you launch a fund? That stuff, I feel like really valuable. But what I always tell people is the hardest part for me was, how do I know what to buy? Or deals. You got to have deals. Yeah. And you also got to have money. Mm-hmm. I feel like those are the 2 biggest problems launching a fund or syndication. You got to have deals. And if you have deals, you got to go find the money. Mm-hmm. If you have money and you don't have deals, it's a non-starter. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, again, if I don't know anybody, I don't have access to people with a lot of money, how do I just go out and find money? Because I get a lot of questions like that. And I was like, I don't know. I spent 11 years in my career building relationships. I don't know what other answer to give people typically is go out and build relationships and add value to people's lives. I feel like that's a bad answer. So I'm curious what you have to say.
Yeah, this whole process, we have a actually trademark process called the Fund Launch Formula. It's 4-step formula, and we have a full sub framework on fully building out your fund. And part of that is deals, vetting deals. And it's funny, money typically follows really good deals, by the way. So just as a side note, the better the deal, the easier it is to raise money. The worse the deal, the harder to raise money. So a lot of people come to me, Bridger, I can't raise money. Help me raise money. And I go, well, what's your product? What do you mean? Walk me through. Did you build something that investors want? Did you just build a Me Too? And a lot of people don't think about that with a fund. They just think, oh, I'll just, I have a deal. I have a property. People will love it. And it's this is just like any other competitive landscape. You have to build a product that customers or investors want. And it's got to have a unique edge and a unique value prop. If it was on a shelf with a bunch of other products, would they choose yours rather than somebody else's, and why? Right. And so to think through that framework. But anyways, we'll talk about capital raising for a second. I break capital raising down into 3 different buckets to help, eat the elephant, I guess you could say. Bucket number 1 is what I call get in the room. Are you even getting around people that are wealthy? Number 1. Are you even in the vicinity of the people? What's your surface area of luck around people that are just, are you in the room with them? Number one is get in the room. Number two, convert the room. Okay, so I got in the room. I'm in the spot with all the wealthy people, but do they see me as just a nobody, or am I somebody that they actually want to partner with, they have status alignment with, and want to do deals with? That's a totally different thing. Right. I know a lot of people can get in rooms, but they can't convert the rooms. Right. And then the third tier is actually what I call close the room. This is actually when we're sitting down, I'm pitching you in the boardroom with a pitch deck, and I'm actually going to close you on my fund. Okay. And so I asked somebody, well, where are you falling short? Are you getting lots of people, but you just can't close them? Or are you getting in the right rooms, but you can't convert them? Or are you just not even in any rooms? Like the top of funnel issue. Yeah. And most people, it's top of funnel. Well, not always, but sometimes it's top of funnel. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways you can get into rooms. I bucket into two kind of sub items: is you can work your way into rooms, or you can buy your way into rooms. Work your way into rooms, meaning LinkedIn, you can outbound, you can reach you. I mean, you can work like you're working the guard to get into the nightclub, kind of an idea. You're working your way, you're hustling, you're going to events, which is great. And I think you should do it. Buy your way into the room. You could buy a Ferrari and join the Ferrari club of Dallas, Texas. Yeah. And guess who else is in that club? Other Ferrari owners of Dallas. There's a barrier of entry. It's a Ferrari club. You have to have a Ferrari. And guess what? You bought your way into a room of qualified people. I joined a mastermind last year. It was $150,000 for 1 year. Wow. It's a lot of money, but also guess what? Everyone else in the room also paid $150,000 to be in that room. Right. It's a good room. Yeah. Okay, so we bought our way into that room. You can buy, I go on and on about this, but, and I think a hybrid of both is good. What I tell people, buy your way into the room and then work the room really hard, right? But that's I'll stop there, but that's how I think about capital raising.
And let's say I can't buy a Ferrari right now, or let's say I can't pay $150,000. What's an example of me, maybe an average Joe, maybe I make pretty good money. How do I buy into a room? What's examples? Are there...
most events have a VIP room, almost always. So most events have if you go to like my event, like there's a VIP, it was like $1,200. And that group is a more qualified group than on an average event or a convention, things like that. Box seats at a sports arena. If you're sitting, by the way, most people, I don't know anyone with money. The only people I see with money are on Instagram with Lamborghinis. The people on Instagram with Lamborghinis is 0.01% of people with money. Yeah. The other 99.9% of people with money don't tell a soul. Right. They keep it quiet. They don't have even social media accounts. Yeah. My dad does not even have social media accounts. They don't care at all. Yeah. And you'd be surprised. I tell people all the time, you'd be surprised how many multi and centimillionaires you walk by every day in the grocery store or whatever. Because I know, at least in my area of the world where I live, I know a lot of guys and gals that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. And they roll into Smith's and Macy's and the mall, and they look like anybody else. And people have no idea. That guy's worth $130 million. Just sold this company last year. No one knows. And so, sorry, I got way off topic there. But getting for the average Joe to get in the right room, there are small masterminds you can join. There's if you're starting from zero, every city in the world does an investor real estate meetup once a month. Go online, just type in investor real estate meetup once a month. Another one, angel groups. They are free to go to and pitch. Now, every angel group's going to be a little different. In Utah, we have two. We have the Salt Lake City Angels and we have the Park City Angels. They just opened up Tribe Angels as a third one. So you could say three in we're in Utah for crying out loud. There's the Boise Angel Alliance, Boise, Idaho. And what happens, just like Shark Tank, about 30 to 40 wealthy investors get together once a month or once a quarter, and they allow people like us to come pitch them. They are waiting. The thing I try to rewrite my brain and other people's brains on is wealthy people are actually waiting for you to bring them a great deal. They are hoping and praying. They actually go out. What a family, if you've ever heard of the term family office, a family office, all that means is a wealthy family has just hired 2, 3, 4, 5 people to go and scour the earth for the best. They're paying a payroll of $400,000 to $1 million a year. They're paying payroll for people to go find you. They're actively looking for you. You don't need to go reinvent the wheel. You don't need to go there's already a river, to use a different analogy, a river of money going, and you just need to insert yourself in that river. You don't need to go reinvent this.
And is that something you guys, do you know Richard Wilson?
Family Office Club.
Yeah. Is that something you guys do similar as well? Try to connect family offices to people starting funds, or is that something? I know you said you're working with family offices.
Yeah, so we've done a number of things. We've sent our I didn't go. My partner went to the Family Office Club. It was most of those events. I'll just say candidly, mostly it's allocators. It's like 95% 95% fund managers and 5% people that would actually write checks. So it's usually weighted not so well. Every room's gonna be a little different. Eye Connections, Milken Institute. We went to the Greenwich Economic Forum last year, and you're gonna have some that are duds and some that are great, you know. And so, with our group, we actually allocate from our fund, our exact fund, and then we actually are building right now a capital committee of 8 to 10 groups that we do almost like a Shark Tank style, like our own kind of angel group.
That's awesome.
Funds,
yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, I went to a family office club as well. Got connected with a great fund, and we're actually potentially working together. But I would agree, absolutely. Sit in VIP, and this is what I tell. Like I coach realtors, and they're like, "How do I stop selling $300,000 houses? How do I sell $1 million houses?" Well, go to the country club, go to the car group. There's car guys next door. You got to hang out where they hang out, and it's not going to be overnight, unfortunately. And that's kind of my answer that I keep giving to people is exactly the same thing. Go to the family office events. Go to the Ferrari Club. There's no shortcut to success, unfortunately.
And I'll say this, if that's not you, if you're listening to this, that's okay. There are people that love doing this, and they've done it for a decade already. And so go partner with them.
I was about to say that. Thank you for reading my...
If you hate that kind of stuff, don't do it. Be the guy that runs the fund or does the investments. There are people out there that love, and for the last decade, they have gone to the events and networked and meet people and done the stuff. And if that's not you, I wouldn't try to make that you.
Yeah, and you know, when people come to me, actually my girlfriend's aunt was asking me this morning, how do I get my husband, he's retired, how do I get him to syndicate multifamily? I'm like, well, is it going to be the money raiser? He's going to go out and create the relationships. No, he's an engineer. That's not his personality. He hates that. So, and then I said, well, let me train him how to find deals. I was like, he's got to learn how to bring really great deals to people and find the people with money. So typically I feel like you're going to be one or the other. You're going to manage the deals, find the deals, and be the fund manager type, or you're going to find the money and build the relationships and figure out which one you are and go do that and become really great at that. Okay, we talked a little bit about what you guys offer. When's your next event, by the way?
We just finished Fund Launch Live 3. We had roughly 2,000 people there, which was crazy. It was so fun. We ran it was awesome. A really fun event. That was in Orlando. It's our third one. We have not announced dates for Fund Launch Live 4 yet. Okay. So we're still working through what we're going to do. We've historically done it once a year. This is our big, huge event. We then throw 3 events with our private community. So we'll probably throw one next month in San Diego. We have another one. We're going on a cruise in Miami, but that's for our private Black Herd members. And we'll throw usually three of those. We have about 200 people come to those.
Awesome. Yeah. Curious about today's landscape. Recently, there's a guy that just lost $250 million multifamily portfolio in Houston. I'm hearing left and right deals being taken back from the bank. I'm sure private equity wise, you're seeing similar, tech companies going under. If I'm starting a fund today, what would you focus on, or what would be maybe 1 or 2 pointers you can give our listeners that are interested? I don't know how to approach it in this kind of crazy economy.
Yeah, I'll talk to a few points, and I'm just going to speculate a little bit. We'll see, and I could be totally wrong. Obviously, we've had interest rates go, through the roof. We can talk through a lot of macro reasons. Maybe unconventional reasons why that is happening and may continue to happen. I've interviewed a lot of, so I had Peter Zeihan on my show and actually spoke at our event, very, well-known geopolitical expert, an economist, and then a few others so I like to pull from all these. And I have a unique position I have 500 fund managers that I talk to every day, and they share what's going on and what they're seeing. So a couple things, on the real estate front, in certain pockets, we've seen banks actually not foreclosing. So they should foreclose. Yeah. And they are throwing the keys back at the owner, saying, we don't want this on our balance sheet. We had a kind of a regional banking crash last year. Banks are very worried about having all these loss on balance sheets. So they're just saying, you know what, we'll just extend your payments. We'll whatever you want, just don't let us we don't want to foreclose. And so they're like, okay, I guess we'll just keep this property. It's very interesting. We've seen a hotel portfolio that just happened too, and a few in commercial so more commercial side. On the other side, though, we're still seeing a major need for residential, in my opinion. Rough numbers, and I had an economist on my show talking me through all this. So I'm gonna give you rough numbers, but he's like, roughly 40 to 45% of homes in the United States are paid off. Another 30 to 40% were purchased with super low interest rates, less than 3% interest rates.
Crazy.
Right now, those are assets. You are not selling those homes.
Right.
So that's roughly 75, 80% of the market is not going to trade right now. Because if you own the home, you're not trading. And if you have a low, like I have a house, 2.6% interest rate. I'm never selling that house. I just bought a new house and I'm keeping that as a rental. Like, why would I ever sell that house? It's an asset.
My girlfriend, if she sells her house at 2.9%, we're breaking up.
Oh,
Do not sell that.
yeah, it's an asset. So now you literally only have.
Just kidding. Eric, cut that.
No,
shit out.
keep that
I'm
in.
not breaking up with her.
Keep it in. So really you have 20% of the market that can trade. And then of that 20%, who do these people want to move or not move, right? And you still have a major housing shortage on the market. So that's one explanation of why home prices really haven't dropped much. I mean, with interest rates where they're at, 5.25%, they should have dropped a lot more, and they haven't, because and then he goes, oh, that makes a little more sense. So that's on residential side. On multifamily, we've seen a mix of things, but still on kind of that same vein, we still see a lot of people wanting to rent, and still healthy, amount of, we have some funds that are going distressed, some funds that are just maintaining, some funds that are, so I've seen funds doing a mix of things, and they're all successful in different facets. They're just finding deals. And so I don't have a big, a strong conviction there. Right now, we are all-time highs, the stock market, which is wild, by the way. It is wild. We are heading into a presidential election right now, which is also going to be wild. I've been talking about that. We're in the year of elections currently. So this is we're having more elections this year than any year in history. 2024. France just had their election. UK has an election. Canada has one next year. India has their election. It's half the world's population has an election this year. Typically, incumbents like to stay in power. And so typically incumbents will do things to juice markets to stay in power. So I've
been waiting for it to happen.
I'm still in the camp of a small rate cut this year before the election. I'm still in that camp, just because of, I know Jerome Powell addressed it. We don't do anything with elections, and maybe he won't, but I'm still in the camp of something. Anyways, kind of interesting. I'll give you one theory on rate increases, if you want to go with that for a second.
So I just got a text from my business partner. What was it? Just so I can read it. 10-year Treasury yield dives after June CPI unexpectedly decreases. So maybe they won't put pressure on Jerome Powell, but maybe they'll juice the inflation numbers downward.
Yeah.
So then he feels comfortable doing a rate.
Well, that's how it would happen. He wouldn't just randomly do it.
Yeah.
And all those, every economist talks to, the CPI number is a very manipulated number. Yeah. They keep changing the basket of goods. The jobs report last year was revised 7 times down.
Oh my God.
They overcounted the jobs report 7 times, published these great job reports, and then 2 months later they go, well, sorry, we missed it. We got to revise it down.
Right.
We could go on and on. Me and my dad and brother wrote a book called Dollars, Gold, and Bitcoin. We talk about a lot of it's it's called the subtitle is The Fed's Secret Agenda and How to Profit from It. Yeah. We talk about these concepts of market manipulators. Barclays was fined $300 million for manipulating the LIBOR price from 2004 to about 2007.
I had no idea.
A private bank was manipulating the price of LIBOR for 3-4 years for their traders to make money. JP Morgan Chase was fined roughly $1 billion, $980 million, the largest fine in SEC history. They were manipulating, get this is a company, manipulated the precious metals markets, gold, silver, copper, for over a decade. The gold market's a $12 trillion market. Now it's $15 trillion. Yeah. That's crazy for not a small company, but a company to do that. Yeah. And so there are a lot of things right now that do not make sense. We have, not right now, but in 2019, we had $13 trillion of negative interest rates. There's not an economic playbook really on what is a negative interest rate. That doesn't make sense.
Japan has dealt with that, but
on $13 trillion. That's wild. And so, we wrote this book talking about the petrodollar and the world game of dollars. There's 3 people in history that we know that have traded large amounts of oil not using U.S. dollars. And what we kind of say is the dollar is the greatest export of the United States. The U.S. will do anything to protect the dollar. We will go to World War III to protect the U.S. dollar. And so the 3 people are Umar Gaddafi, kind of got killed. by the U.S. government. Saddam Hussein also traded large amounts of oil not using U.S. dollars, kind of got killed by the U.S. government. And the third one is Vladimir Putin. Traded large amounts of oil not using U.S. dollars. And we blew up, we don't know who, somebody blew up the Nord Stream pipeline twice in 2 spots last year with a submarine. No one knows who did it with Navy SEALs. Somebody, anyways, kind of crazy. And a Nobel Peace Prize winning reporter detailed a full expose on that it was the United States government. It's a big deal when you don't trade with U.S. dollars. And so you have the rise of BRICS nations right now coming as a threat to the U.S. dollar. They want to get off the U.S. dollar, but they can't.
Well, because was it India, China, Russia? What was the coalition that just went off the U.S. dollar? Russia.
They're trying to get off the U.S. dollar. So the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They just added Saudi Arabia, Iran, a few other countries are adding on to that. They still, though, use the U.S. dollar quite regularly. They're trying to get off. The problem is, it's so hard to get off the U.S. dollar, and for a few reasons. And I know people on the dollar sucks. The dollar's terrible. There's an index called the DXY. It tracks the dollar versus other currencies. Go look it up right now. Last time I looked, this was 2 weeks ago, it was up, the dollar, in the last 3 years. Take a guess what the dollar has done in the last 3 years compared to other currencies. Most people would say it's gone down, which, again, this is relative.
The news you see is it going down.
Which we have inflation, so that's true, but compared to what? Compared to other currencies, the dollar is up 16% in the last 3 years. Most people don't believe that. You can go look it up right now on the DXY. The dollar is up 16% in the last 3 years compared to other currencies. So if you're China and you want to trade oil in rubies, you're down 16, 20% in the last 3 years. The number one job of the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve is to protect our greatest export, which is U.S. dollars. And so, for example, and I'll give you an example on interest rates. And this is I'm just playing game theory. So China comes out and says, we want to sell our treasuries. They own about $1 trillion of treasuries. We want to get off the dollar. We're going to sell treasuries. Okay. What does the U.S. government do? We say inflation is transitory, right? It's transitory. It's transitory. Don't worry about it. It's transitory. Remember this? And then out of nowhere, they go, whoops. The smartest people on earth with the most data, the most resources, the world superpower goes, we made a mistake. We're going to jack interest rates at the fastest rate in history from 0 to 5.25. And they jack interest rates like crazy. And what does it do? It devalues bonds by 50%.
Yeah. Well, China's been doing that to the U.S. inversely for years.
They've manipulated back. Yeah. But if you're China, you can't sell your treasuries now. You take a $500 billion loss. Smart. You go, shoot, we got to stay with this dollar thing. Now, this is the same thing that took down Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah. People don't realize that. If you were the bank manager at Silicon Valley Bank, guess what they did? Hey, we got some extra cash. Let's buy bonds. Bonds are safe. Yeah. That's a good idea. And as a community, that we would all probably say, that's a good idea. They bought $3.5 billion of bonds. They got devalued, and they got market to market, and there was a run on the bank, and that took down Silicon Valley Bank.
I had a ton of investors actually lost a little bit of cash. What was the trademark or the benchmark? 250,000 or less? Mm-hmm. I don't remember, but that was a huge deal. Half of my investors are in Silicon Valley.
And I think then the Fed stepped in, then we had all those other banks step. But anyways, the idea that it's more than just the CPI number you see or the jobs report. They're playing a macro game with the dollar right now. Mm-hmm. They are pushing their weight around. The other one is national debt. National debt's at 36 trillion, something like that. Now that's high. I'm not going to argue it's not high. It is high. But if it was at 0, I think I'd be more concerned. Sure. At 0, it's not sticky. Yeah. When you have $36 trillion of debt held by other nations or people, that debt needs to be worth something. And so if China wants to get off the dollar or whoever, they say the dollar's worth us, okay, the world essentially has to take a haircut of $36 trillion. If you're the world reserve currency, you want debt held by other countries as much as possible. Because the debt is not owed back in bushels of wheat or rubies or euros or yen. It's owed back in US dollars. Right. And so the job of the Federal Reserve is to protect the US dollar. And when you think about it from that macro lens, they will do what they want, number one. And with the Aladdin system on BlackRock, they can manipulate a lot of things, in my opinion. They can move a CPI number or to whatever they want. It's more of how does, in my opinion, I always go back to how does this affect oil and the US dollar? What does it affect and how does this push other countries? And to summarize this, I believe we are, in Ray Dalio's book, he talks about economic wars precede physical wars. We are currently in economic warfare right now. We do have a few wars that have kicked off, but on a macro scale, we are in economic warfare against the BRICS nations currently, specifically China. And I believe we are winning to a great degree right now of economic warfare. Foxconn has moved out. We passed the CHIPS Act. We moved all chip manufacturers out of China. We had trade embargo. We put 3 aircraft carriers between us and Taiwan to make sure they wouldn't take Taiwan. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're currently there is a pending bank collapse right now in China. Mm-hmm. Every single major real estate developer in China is in default currently.
I saw that.
According to Goldman Sachs.
That's huge.
It is massive. They are, it could already be a Great Depression. We just don't know about it.
Sure.
And because they're not reporting data, but we are currently in major economic warfare. So I'll stop there.
Well, and just summarize this in 30 seconds. Why is that so important for the average Joe, the investor, to have the US dollar protected? Because I feel like there's a disconnect there. Why do we have to go to economic warfare? Why does the US government and its leaders, why is it so important to protect the dollar? Why do they have to jack rates up when it does kind of mean negative things for a lot of people? There are people losing houses and losing multifamily deals. Importantly, if no one uses the dollar, I mean, it becomes obsolete, and that has huge, huge ramifications for the U.S. economy.
Our world as we know it would turn over.
Yeah.
Like drastically. It would be if I don't want to, most of everything we own, we talk about this building, our house, our car, our shoes, everything is denominated on US dollars.
Absolutely.
It would turn over the entire world military.
It's our way of life.
Borders would change. I mean, it would be a massive, and if you're a anarchist that wants that, then great. But it's a major problem. I'm a supporter of the US dollar. I want the US dollar to keep going forever. Now, is it a Ponzi scheme, Bridger? Yes, it is a Ponzi scheme. Mm-hmm. But guess what? I was born into it, and you were too. We're all part of the Ponzi scheme. I get it's a Ponzi scheme. I know it is.
Yeah.
But it's the best Ponzi scheme we got, and so we might as well. It's the way of life as we know it, and now I run a blockchain crypto fund. Do I believe in cryptocurrency? Yes. But also, do I believe the U.S. government would go to World War III before letting go of the dollar? Yes.
Absolutely. Great info there. Market's a little crazy right now, but what I want to end with there, and I'm sure you believe the same thing, there's always deals. When is a good time to start a fund? Well, now, yesterday, a year ago, 5 years ago. And again, my girlfriend's aunt was at the breakfast table with me this morning. When should we start our syndication company? I'm like, last year. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Just get started. There's always deals to be had. So right now with our investors, we are looking for distressed assets. We're looking for regular assets. We're looking for unique deals that we can put long-term debt on that have a lower risk portfolio. We're going to put way more down on a down payment. I'm sure you're seeing the same things, but if someone wants to get started with what you guys offer, you mentioned a lot of free content, YouTube, courses. I think you would agree. Just get started now. Sounds like you guys offer.
It increases the surface area of luck.
Yes.
For example, if you had the best deal ever come to you today, just blind luck, it knocks on your door. Mm-hmm. You're probably not ready.
Yeah.
To do that deal. That deal will.
That happened to me in 2018.
Oh, really?
I couldn't move on a few deals, and it killed me.
If you want to do a deal next year, you should start today.
Absolutely.
And build the foundation and framework and mindset that when a great deal knocks on your door in early 2025, we're ready to go. I got the paperwork. I know the documents. I know how it works. I call this person. I do this. And we do the deal in 21 days.
Absolutely.
If you wait for that deal to come first, what will happen is, like you did, it'll miss, and then it'll miss. And then what happens is you're like, crap, now I got to get going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's what kicks you in the butt to get moving, but it's opportunity cost will start to eat you alive. Absolutely. Do you happen to know Jed Milburn? Mm-mm. So he runs a syndication company out of Salt Lake, and this is the best example, and we can kind of end on this. I started flipping houses in 2011. Bottom of the market, was buying houses 50 cents on the dollar. He started syndicating multifamily deals. Very similar business, much bigger ticket item.
and he's over 2 billion in assets AUM now. And I watched after I met him like 8 years later, and I had been flipping houses, doing smaller deals, did well, and he's at $1 billion, 2 billion in assets under management. I was like, damn, if I had access to the money and the knowledge and had everything set up back in 2011, I could be at 2 billion as well. And so my goal since I met him and kind of saw the difference in our trajectories is the next time there's a crash, I want to have everything ready to go. And that's why we started a company in 2018. Is I said, I want to have access to cash, the investors, the right partners, and the right deals. So next time there's those type of deals to be had, I can actually take advantage of it. And that's the biggest reason I wanted you to be on the show is there are so many people in that same exact situation where they may not be ready if they do get the opportunity. And what a sad story that will be. And that's why I started the podcast in 2020, recession-proof real estate investing. What did people do in 2008 to become multi-millionaire? There was more millionaires made in that last recession than ever before. Yeah. And I think we're facing a similar situation now.
I want to share this framework of the concept of luck. The guy Naveen, he wrote this out, and I want to give him credit for it. But I love this concept of people think about luck and usually blind luck is the first thing people. That's the first stage of luck. There's just blind luck where things just come to you. Okay, you're lucky. But you've heard the cliche like the harder I work, the luckier I am. We kind of broke that into a framework. The next tier of luck is exposure luck. So the first one's blind luck. That one's just blind. Next one is exposure luck, meaning I'm exposed to an industry. My chances of luck, the surface area of luck now increases, right? Because maybe I'm in multifamily. Maybe I'm working for you at your company, but I have a higher exposure just because I'm in the industry. Yeah. The next one is skill luck. So each one builds on the next one. So when you get exposure, you start building skills in that industry. And because you're skilled in multifamily, you have skill luck. The chances of lucky deals coming your way because you have great skills increases. Your surface area of luck drastically increases. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then if you do enough of the exposure luck, then skill luck, you will then start to build reputational luck, which is the holy grail of luck. Meaning you have built such a good reputation as a multifamily syndicator that any deal in this county comes to you because everyone knows that Sam's the guy that does them all and he's the best one here. Any company that's doing rockets right now probably talks to Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, right? Because they have reputational luck. And so I think I love that framework of increasing my luckiness, not just blind luck, but okay, I need to get exposure luck, then I need to get skill luck, and then hopefully I can get reputational luck.
I love that
asset class.
I love that. I've never heard it put that way, and that makes a lot of sense. Everyone's always said I get lucky by working hard, get the skills, being able to recognize deals, and then just having deals come to you. That's I've experienced a little bit of that, and it is so damn fun. When I was actually out in San Antonio, and this guy, I had no idea who he was. He's like, hey, I've followed you for 2 years. I announced that I was in San Antonio. He came and met me at a property and started bringing me deals. And I was like, this is the first time I was like, oh, dang, this is fun. It's way easier. Yeah. Like he brought me an amazing deal that I would have never seen otherwise.
Yeah, reputational luck. Yep.
Reputational luck. I love that. But you got to start somewhere. Start by working hard, get the skills, and that's huge. So you wrote a book. I love to end on the question of maybe top 1 or 2 or 3, as many as you want, books that have been most effective for you or life-changing for your personal or business life.
I'll just rattle them off. Maybe I can go in depth if you want. You want me to go in depth or just say them?
Let's hear it.
First book for marketing that I've absolutely loved. I'll give 2 on marketing. Launch by Jeff Walker. He runs the PLF style launch format. It's very tactical. I like tactical things, not esoteric crap.
I can tell you've got lists for everything. I love it.
I like frameworks. I like tactical. I like execution. I like to move. Launch by Jeff Walker. It's how I launch, fun launch. Incredible book. Highly recommend. And then Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. His whole Secrets trilogy is awesome. Huge shout out to Russell. I've loved his content. Religious side, I'm a Christian. I love the Book of Mormon. Avid reader of the Book of Mormon. I read it every day. And the Bible. So I love both those books. If you're religious and want to dive in, great books to read. On funds and or markets. Ray Dalio's The World Changing Order is a very good book.
I've not read that one yet.
So it's an interesting concept on the changing world order. and his theories and just how to look at markets. If you want to get just introduced to funds, More Money Than God is a very fun read.
Wow.
It talks through some of the greatest and worst trades on Wall Street it just gets you excited about writing funds. It's a very fun book. So, those are, and then the last one I'll share is an old finance book. It's called Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. This book was written in the 1930s, I believe.
Wow.
It stood the test of time. This book is, my dad has read it probably 18 times. I've now read it a handful of times.
Wow.
The reason it's such a good book, it tells a story in the 1910s and 20s of a young stock trader that goes on Wall Street, starts trading stocks. But embedded in this book is great principles of how to be a great investor. What's even more telling is this book it's all before the SEC came out. And so they talk about market manipulation and short selling and all this stuff. The crazy thing is the Wild West, all the same stuff happens today.
Yeah.
Even though we have an SEC,
They just hide it better.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
And so understanding the mechanics of the market. One example I'll give from the book, so there's this big guy in Wall Street. He's got he's got his huge office, multi-million-dollar trader. And he told anybody that comes to him that brings him a good tip on a trade that's correct, he'll give, I think, like $10,000. Back in that day, that's like tons of money, $10,000 to this person.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he brings him this great trade. And he says, he goes, so-and-so down the street is I can't remember, buying or selling. It was like wheat. And let's just say he's selling a lot of wheat. He is buying a ton of wheat. Okay. This person down the street. So he goes, we should sell into this guy, whatever. And so he gives him this tip, and he does he tells the guy that's running this fund, he tells him this tip, like, you should buy wheat for this example. He does the exact opposite. He turns to his guy, he goes, sell 5,000 bushels of wheat. And he goes, no, I just told you to buy. You should be buying.
Yeah.
He goes, and he looks at it, he says, order fill? He's like, yep, order fill. He goes, sell another 7,000. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you selling?
Yeah.
You should be doing the opposite of my tip. Do you not believe me? Do you think I'm lying to you? Like, what's going on? He's all nervous. And the orders fill instantly.
Wow.
And he goes, the fact that we just, I think in that example I said sold 12,000 bushels of wheat.
Yeah.
And it was does confirm the tip that you told me.
Yeah.
Let's go buy 100,000 bushels of wheat.
Wow.
And so he tested the market to see if there actually was a buyer on the other side of the market. I just thought it was a very interesting story to share how he tested a tip from a friend to see if it actually stood. And then he doubled down and he made a huge amount of money on that trade and paid this guy off. And anyways, it shares lots of very interesting stories about tips and fraudsters and market manipulation and all sorts of fun stuff. So Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is very fun. Very fun.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Awesome. Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. Love that. I read a book from, again, that time period, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. Very basic book, very short book, but again, same time period, really beneficial. Thank you for that. Bridger, this has been really fun. I've learned a ton today. Again, I want to promote what you've got going on. I really believe, you mentioned what do wealthy families want for their kids? Get a great education and get into finance, get into fund management. And since 2018, my goal has been to have a fund and eventually have $1 billion assets under management. And I think what we talked about today was you got to know the people, but you got to be able to execute as well. You got to be able to take advantage of being in the room. You can't get in the room and just not close anyone. And so you can buy yourself into the room or you can network. Both are good. Really great takeaways. I think the biggest takeaway today.
I'm so sorry. I have to run.
Okay.
I'm like
good.
3 minutes. I have a whole group waiting for me on a call.
We can be done.
I'm so sorry. And thank you so much for having me, Sam.
No, we went way over. This is awesome.
This was a fun conversation though. I really got to run. They got a whole group waiting for me, but you're amazing.
We'll take a second.
Sorry to cut you off right at the end.